the past few weeks, we saw evidences that prove that the global flood was true. So, if this flood was true, then it also means that Noah, his family, and the animals that were there along with him had also survived the flood. So, this is the final point which the critics tried to attack, asking if the flood was so destructive, so massive in a global scale, how could have Noah survived such a destructive flood? Hello everyone, this is Michael, and in today's episode we are going to see evidences that prove that Noah had survived the ark, and along with it we are also going to see how many animals were there with him in the ark. It's a very interesting episode. Let's get started. The reason why people ask if the Noah's Ark was true is because there is a wrong image in the mind of the peoples. This is because we have seen so many images in kids' books or in some animation cartoons which represents the Ark of Noah as a very small boat and with some small animals peeping out. So this is why people often think wrong about the ark, thinking that if such a small how can such a small boat survive such a global flood. So first what we need to do is that we need to understand how exactly the ark of Noah had looked like. Let's turn to the scriptures. Genesis chapter 6 verse number 14. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood, make rooms in the ark and cover it inside and outside with pitch, and this is how you shall make it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, its width 50 cubits, its height 30 cubits. You shall make a window for the ark, and you shall finish it to a cubit from above, and set the door of the ark in its side. You shall make it with lower, second, and third decks. So, this is the actually exact dimensions which God gives to Noah to prepare the ark. So, let's do some maths to it and understand how big the ark should have actually looked like. First, let us convert the cubits into feet. Actually, historically, if we see the cubits, the measurement which the people use for cubit varies from culture. Like the Egyptians had a different unit of measurement. They had a different unit. I mean, like the 1 cubit will equal to different inches for the Egyptians. It varied for the Chaldeans and it varied for the Hebrews. So scholars did a research on it, and they found that the Hebrews actually had calculated 1 cubit as 18 inches, which is approximately 1.5 feet. So what we will do, we will convert the cubits into feet, and by doing so, if we do the small math here, we can see that the length of the ark was almost 450 feet, and the width is almost 75 feet, and the height of the ark is 45 feet. So if we need to get a better understanding of what should have been the height if it is a 45 feet, just imagine a 4-story building. That is what a 45 feet tall ark would actually look like. Now, if we need to understand in a much better way, we need to look at the volume of the ark. If we do the math, then it comes to the volume of the ark was 13,96,000 cubic feet. Now, this might sound huge if we are good in math, but if I had to simplify it much further, I will give you an analogy by comparing it with a bus. Now, look at this image of this bus. This is a 40 feet long bus, and the cubic feet of a 40 feet long bus is approximately 2000 feet. Now, if we take one bus and place inside the ark, and if we do the math, we can actually place 670 school buses, 40 feet long buses inside the ark. Now, again, if we take one bus and for our calculation, we can at least place minimum of 50 people. The capacity of the bus can hold up to 50 people into it. So, again, if we do the math calculation, totally more than 33,500 people can actually accommodate inside the ark, and still it is on the lower side because we have taken the numbers, everything on a little bit lower side. So an ark that has a capacity to hold 33,500 people inside it, that's how huge the ark of Noah was. So if the ark was so huge, so big, then there was a scientist who questioned the durability of the ark. A scientist from KRISO, the Korean Research Institute of Ships and Ocean Engineering, started a research on this ark. His name was Seon Won Hong, and what he did was he took 10 different models of ship along with the design of the ark which Noah had prepared, and he put those designs under various weather conditions like storms and hurricanes and different scenarios like high tides and so on. And among all the tests, he concluded and what he observed was the ark of Noah was the only ark that withstood every different difficult scenarios. The study even proved that the ark was designed in a perfect way that it was even able to withstand 100 feet tall wave. That's how durable and perfectly the ark was actually designed. They were actually in fact amazed to see that the ark was very precisely designed that even a few feet longer or a few feet smaller would have not given such a great durability. What they found was the proportions of the ark were found to carefully balance the conflicting demands of stability, comfort, and strength. That's how precise the ratio was. And now came the question, if the ark was so precise, so amazing, how could have Noah designed such an engineering marvel 4,000 years back? And now they might not have the answer for that question, but we clearly know. We can read in Genesis chapter 6 verse 15, and this is how you shall make it. These were the words of God. The design was given by God. God's design is always perfect and incredible. Now, moving on to the next question. So now we have evidences that the ark was big and it had huge capacity to accommodate so many animals, and we also have proof which have been proved by the scientists that the ark should have definitely survived such a global catastrophic flood. Now, the second question is, how many animals did actually Noah take along with him in the ark? Because this question comes because people would think there are millions of species of plants, birds, and animals and insects, and how would it have been possible for Noah to take so many animals? Let's again turn to the scriptures. Genesis chapter 6 verse number 19 says, "And of every living thing of all flesh you shall bring 2 of every sort into the ark, to keep them alive with you. They shall be male and female, of the birds after their kind, of animals after their kind, and of every creeping thing of the earth after its kind. 2 of every kind will come to you to keep them alive." Now, this verse is very crucial for us to understand what type of animals had actually accompanied Noah. Based on this verse, first we need to understand that only birds, animals, and creeping things had accompanied Noah. So no water creatures or no tiny insects had accompanied. So when we are going to calculate how many animals had been with Noah in the ark, we need to remove all these small species or insects or water creatures. We need to take a look at only the birds, animals, and then the creeping things. So now again in this verse we can clearly see a word used as kind. It says that the birds after their kind, animals after their kind, creeping thing of the earth after its kind. Now here this word kind is very crucial for us to understand, because animals are categorized differently. They are categorized like kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. Now this word kind actually comes under the family category. So based on this, like if we have to take one animal kind, then it means that there were only 2 dogs or 2 cats or 2 elephants. It does not mean that there were 2 African elephants and there were 2 Indian elephants. There were 2 Rottweilers, 2 German Shepherds, or 2 Labrador. It is actually like just 2 dogs. That's it. That is what the word kind means. So based on the scientists actually did a research on it. They took how many different kinds of animals are there, and they also included the extinct animals, and they came to a conclusion that there were around 8,000 kinds. So if we consider it as a male and female, then it should be around 16,000 animals approximately which were there on the board. So as we already saw, there were actually a space to accommodate up to 33,500 people. But based on this verse we can clearly see that there were only 16,000 animals which were there along with Noah inside the ark. Now the follow through question which people would usually ask is that if the ark was just 45 feet high, how could have Noah taken a dinosaur or a huge elephant along with him inside the ark? Now this is where we need to use logic here. Nowhere in the Bible God asked Noah to take old animals or matured animals inside the ark. So to think logically, it makes more sense that only a juvenile animal would be much easy for him to take in the ark. So because in case if all the animals accompanied Noah were juvenile, then it means that they eat less, they occupy less space, and in fact they are the best for reproduction for the post flood scenarios. So logically saying, this makes much more sense. A huge dinosaur which we see is actually the size of a cow when it is juvenile. So based on this, we can clearly see that if all animals were juvenile, then definitely 16,000 animals boarding the ark is not a difficult thing at all. It is very, very possible, and it's true according to the scriptures. So by seeing all these things, we have very clear evidences that the global flood was true, and also the ark survived the flood. Yep, Noah and his family were there in the ark, and we also have evidences how many animals were there inside the ark. So the incident of the Noah and the great flood is very clearly proven according to the scriptures. Now, why are we actually seeing all these things? This is not just for us, to increase our knowledge or just to know about these things, but actually this is also for us to share the gospel with others. 2 Peter chapter 3 verse number 6 says, by which the world that then existed perished, being flooded with water, but the heavens and the earth, which are now preserved by the same word, are reserved for fire until the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. So what this verse says is that just like how the world was flooded with water, how it was destroyed by water, is actually reserved for another judgment by fire. So what we need to understand from this verse is that there is another judgment coming. So we need to go and warn people of what is coming ahead, so that they can prepare themselves and they can get themselves ready to meet Christ, which his second coming is actually very getting closer and soon as days goes on. Matthew 24:37 very clearly says that as the days of Noah will be, so will the days of the Son of Man coming be. So let us prepare as many people as we can, and let's keep sharing the gospel so that they can also save themselves. They can believe in Christ and be saved from the coming judgment. If it's God's will, we'll meet you another episode of this weekly Pearl program. God bless you.